Connecting you with top-performing agents for 2% commission. Each week, we bring you exclusive interviews with industry experts covering everything from staging to negotiation strategies to home inspection issues and everything in between. Whether you're selling your home, a first-time home buyer, or a seasoned investor, we've got you covered. Let's make your real estate dreams a reality in this fast-moving and ever-changing real estate market. This program is funded in whole or in part by Trusted Agent USA, Illinois license number 475-145-795. Now, here's Larry.
All right, everybody. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. We're coming to you live on our Facebook group at the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. My name's Larry Shakman. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. We're going to bring on some great guests, and we have a popular topic everybody's talking about, and that is the Sitzer-Burnett class action lawsuit that was settled, I think, about 2 weeks ago by the NAR. And we are going to get into that shortly. I am going to bring our guests on now to introduce themselves. The famous or infamous Patrick Loftis. Can you hear me, Patrick? Everybody out there? Dylan, are you hearing me?
I hear you fine, Larry.
Patrick, you okay over there? Are we on mute or something?
There you go. Oop, nope. I heard him for a second, then he was gone.
Okay, so we're going to get started, and Patrick will jump on in. And we're going to have John Hoffman joining us as well. So Dylan, why don't you introduce yourself, my co-host, and Patrick will be back with us in a second.
Sure. I'm Dylan Kramer, and I am a mortgage lender with NAR, and we help people get to closing on time, on budget, and no surprises. I didn't realize we were going the full hour today, Larry. Like I told you, I got to check a little early. Spend a good chunk of this hour hashing this stuff out.
All right. We're glad to have you on for as long as you can be on. And yeah, we got some
no worries, man.
Great stuff to talk about. Let's get Patrick back on here.
All right. Can you hear me?
There we are.
Yeah,
right.
There you go.
I can hear you now.
Awesome.
I don't know what happened.
Awesome. Bring your cat on, will you?
she's her own cat. She decides when she wants to be on. So if she decides to cooperate, I'll let you know.
Hey, introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Patrick Loftis. I'm a real estate lawyer. I practice law in the Chicago area. Why do I do it? Because I got bills to pay, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I hear you. We all do, don't we? We may be joined shortly by John Hoffman, who is the broker owner over at Y Rent Real Estate. And so, yeah, you guys tuning in, you can, if you are tuning in, if you're not hearing this anyway, but we're live at the Real Estate Radio Show podcast on Facebook. So go there and join in, and you can comment and join in the festivities here if you want. And we're also live on YouTube and LinkedIn as well at Larry Shakman. So we've got a great subject to talk about today, don't we, Patrick?
Oh, God. We've got one that definitely is an engaging one. I can tell you that. Whether it's a great subject, well, I guess I guess we can all make our own decisions about that.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the Sitzer-Burnett class action lawsuit that was settled about 2 weeks ago by the National Association of Realtors, the largest trade group in the world. How awesome, right? How great to be represented by them. And Patrick, do me a favor and just kind of set the table and tell us what the suit was about, what the settlement is about. Give us the cliff notes and what may change as a result of this come July.
What may change? Probably not much, but what happened? So a group of, certain home sellers didn't like the idea that they were paying both the seller and both their agent and the buyer's broker. If you don't know, if you're not aware of how that works, when you list your home, typically what happens is you will have a listing agreement with your agent, and that listing agreement will spell out how much you're paying in commission. And in Chicago area, it's typically about 6%. Nationwide, it's anywhere between 5 and 6%, depending on where you are. Now, of that 6%, a portion of that typically gets shared with whichever broker brought your buyer. And in the Chicago area, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 2.5%. So that of that 6%, we're just going to use that number. A portion of that goes toward the broker that brought the buyer, who negotiated with your broker and was representing someone who was, not aligned with your interests. So that was like the first thing that kind of, rubbed people the wrong way. And then ancillary to that, you have the notion that if it's the listing broker determining how much of that share, how much of their commission they're going to share with the buyer's broker, the buyer is they are not empowered to negotiate what they're paying their broker. So there's a bunch of stuff that that was viewed as anti-consumer, and ultimately they filed a lawsuit alleging illegal collusion, stating that basically the reason that everyone was paying across the country essentially the same amount of commission was due to the fact that real estate brokers were basically had an implicit agreement that this is what it is, and they won. They won
big.
The $1.8 billion is what the jury in the Sitzer-Burnett case awarded the plaintiff.
I guess if you call that big, right?
Who knows anymore, right? Like, being a billionaire seems to be like just the entry level of being a super rich person. It used to be a big deal. I don't know. So anyways, time passed, and there's so many little different like offshoots, off ramps to go and to discuss things. I think a big part of eventually the National Association of Realtors, the dominoes kind of fell. You had Remax, you had Anywhere. They settled pretty early on, actually pre-trial. You had Keller Williams that settled after trial, and then eventually the National Association of Realtors settled, and that brought in any brokerage that does, I think, less than $2 billion in a given year was brought in under the umbrella of the National Association of Realtors agreement. Now that leaves some out that need to opt into the agreement. They're not automatically they're not automatically covered, and in connection with some other things that they agreed to do to change practices in the real estate business, the National Association of Realtors agreed to pay these plaintiffs $418 billion. So you go, wow, that's a lot less than the $1.8 billion.
It's over 4 years, so
Well, yeah, sure. It's like just still some change you found in the cushion of your couch. But
about what I pay in dues every year. So
I don't know. Didn't you say $156? There's a little delta there.
I'm going to bring John Hoffman on. John.
Well,
hey, boys.
Okay. Go ahead, Patrick.
156 times 1.4 million members,
It's about $250 million, not to mention the $45 a year we each pay to finance their community awareness campaigns, which there's so much here. It's unbelievable. But yeah, so some of the things that are going to change as a result of this is no longer on the MLS. And John, we're just talking about this Sitzer-Burnett case. And
I'm hearing it.
Yeah, I know. So some of the things that are going to change if the judge signs off on it and after the DOJ comments on it is there's no longer going to be that little box on the MLS that states what the buyer's broker is going to be paid. and you're going to have to negotiate that and have a signed agreement with your buyer as to what they're on the hook for if the seller is not going to agree to any concessions to help the buyer meet that obligation. Am I right?
Hey, did you see that DOJ? They peeled that back yesterday. Did you see that in the news?
I did. Get into that. What did they say exactly?
They wanted to go deeper on the NAR, and so at the point that the case was closed, and what's that?
Imagine that.
Yeah, and I only read it for a few seconds, but they allowed them to reopen the case so they can go dig deeper on the NAR.
Yeah.
It's like the NAR, what a joke. And you know what kills me, you guys? Good to see you too, Patrick. And who else we got? We got Dylan out there too. Hey boys, how are you? But what kills me is that the NAR. What kills me is the NAR. For 20 years, I never heard a peep out of them. I didn't even know what they did for me. And now I get stuff 3 times a week going, hey, we're here to help. It's crazy, man. I'm just like, oh, I forgot I even paid them.
You know what? I was going to comment on that. We just go along at one point they were at 1.6 million members, right? So I think that was their peak, 1.6 something million members. And, we just go along every year. We pay our dues. We pay our dues. Why? Because we have to pay our dues, because if we're not members of the NAR, we don't have access to the MLS, which we'll get into in a minute. I called my association actually this week, and I was like, hey, I got a question for you. What if I decide I don't want to be a part of the NAR? But I did
the same thing.
Yeah, I'm still going to be a part of the association. Will I have access to the MLS? And they said, well, no, because you have to be a part of the national organization. I said, so I'm being forced to be a part of the NAR in order to call myself a realtor, which next to being a lawyer is like the worst possible thing you could be called on earth. So they said, yeah.
Well, maybe a mortgage lender.
Or a mortgage lender, certainly. We're all loved.
We're all crooks.
So they said, no, you have to be a member. So we'll get into that in a bit. But the other thing, other than the commission box is going away on the MLS, is sellers will still be able to offer a concession to the buyers, but that's going to be off the MLS and going to have to be negotiated between the selling agent and the listing agent in the negotiation. Am I right, Patrick? Did I kind of sum that up correctly?
Yeah. Basically, they just, wherever on the listing it currently shows what that broker co-op is, they're just going to have to wipe that off. And I mean, talk about a small potatoes kind of, concession. I mean, gee whiz, I'm going to have to text the other broker to find out what the broker co-op is, or maybe even call them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My gosh. If anyone out there who is feeling particularly entrepreneurial, if you decide you want to set up an app that listing brokers can enter in, it's a third-party app, not associated with the NAR. We can keep a database of what the various broker co-ops are going to be. That'll save you the trouble of texting that listing broker when
That's an awesome idea. I heard you mention that the other day, I think on one of your TikTok videos, and that's actually an awesome idea.
I'm telling you.
There's going to be, there's going to be things that come out of this whole thing that I think people are going to invent to make this whole process easier. But, me and Dylan have talked about this, and I think, Dylan has mentioned he thinks that, well, I'll let him say it. What do you think is going to happen out of this, Dylan?
Look, ultimately, I think the answer is, for the most part, nothing. I mean, like you said, and I think like Patrick is, we're going to find ourselves in a situation 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, where the class action lawyers have gotten paid the paperwork and everybody marches on down the road doing business just how we do it now.
Do you think it's going to affect buyers at all?
I think ultimately, no, it's not going to affect buyers dramatically, and specifically relative to buyers. There's been some conversations. There was some buzz earlier this week that they're going to turn around and put legislation out there that's going to change the VA buyer to allow them to pay a selling commission. That's dead on arrival. The fee that, so they're just going to squash it at the congressional level. I think that if they do pass that, we'd still end up in a situation where there were commission figuring that out from a paperwork standpoint, and the only thing it would do to the veterans is put them in a situation where they're paying the transaction fees that that some brokerages pass through. The FHA already allows 6% and basically reaffirmed their position that we allow 6% concessions. Figure it out, and they're not the lending industry right now, especially given that we're still at the fact is we're still at the point where it's the general disposition of the lending business seems to be figure it out under the guidelines we have now. You should be able to make it work. That's not our problem.
Yeah. That's like Kevin Sears came on and said, you guys are going to figure this out. We know you guys have been through this before. You're going to figure all this out. It's not a big deal. Hey, I want to give you a scenario and tell me what you guys think of this. So let's say a buyer finds a house that they love, okay? And they want to put an offer in on this house. And I call the listing agent up and I say, hey, my buyer loved this house. They want to put an offer in. Is your seller offering any concession to the buyer in order for help them meet their obligation to me or to my brokerage? Excuse me. It's never my fault. And the selling agent, the listing agent says, no, the seller has decided they're not going to offer any concession to help the buyer meet their obligation to their brokerage that they're working with and they have an agreement with. So what's going to happen to that buyer now that they have to come up with that 2% or 2.5% that they've already signed an agreement with the broker they're working with? What happens?
I think that problem will be figured out before you get to that point. Because you'll be like, look, I got to get paid something here before I even start working with you.
Careful.
I mean, I'm just saying it. What brokers are going to be out there? If you are running around and you don't have anything with your buy. I mean, what I'm saying is before you looked at any house, even looked up anything, you're going to have something in place for you. To at least cover you somewhat. I can't picture anybody out running around with no real agreement in place to be paid. That way when
you can't do that anymore. You can't do that. You're going to have an agreement with the buyer moving forward before you show them any home. And as a matter of fact, if you're holding an open house, my understanding is before the buyer walks in to see that open house, if they're not with their broker they're represented by, or if they don't have a broker they're being represented by, they're going to have to sign an agreement that if they buy this house or want to put an offer in on this house, they're going to have to do it with you or whoever is running.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You'll already have something in place, so you'll be being paid by that buyer, hence your agreement with them. If you're asking the seller, can I get paid, and that's okay, but you'd already have something in place.
Right.
Between you two is what I'm saying. Yeah. That you shouldn't be out hunting for that. I mean, because really you don't want to be shopping that way anyways.
We have been, right? We've always
I mean, but we've always pretty much been paid for the most part, by the seller. But another thing I was going to say about the 6% thing you'd mentioned, and it's like, who's charging? If I see one more article that says, I saw an article the other day that said, should sellers list now or wait for the 6% to be canceled? I'm like, well, who came up with that? I haven't seen 6% in 25 years.
Yeah. Actually, somewhere between 4.5% and 5.5%.
Yeah. if that. I've seen some really low ones.
Yeah.
The whole thing is madness when I see the media just pumping 6%. I'm like, where is that? I haven't seen that in years.
Well, the media,
decades. Yeah. Anyways,
they're digging for clicks. That's all.
Exactly.
And the fact is, when you read one of these articles, the person that wrote the headline isn't the person that wrote the article. So not a lot of people realize that, and that's what's so that can be very misleading and to the detriment of the public. I think, Larry, to your question, how are you going to address that situation if you didn't already set that expectation with your client that, look, we might be searching for homes out there, and there might be someone who is not going to be offering the same broker co-op as what you're agreeing with me. And you're gonna say to that client, will you have cash to make up the difference? If not, you're gonna talk to someone like Dylan who's working with them. Hey, how do we need to structure this deal? What kind of closing cost credit do we need to negotiate up front in order to make sure that nobody is left? Larry, you don't work for free. The buyer doesn't want you to not get paid either. They're not looking for a free lunch. They're looking to buy a house. Okay, so setting those expectations up front. If you're not already doing that, this is a good reminder that it's really, really important to make sure that you're not scrambling on the backside of the transaction to make sure you get paid. Because guess what? In the first situation, in the first situation where the expectation was set, you're going to be good. In the other situation where you just figure, I guess it'll work out. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. But set that expectation.
Yeah, I think
Larry, funny thing just occurred to me about the situation that you're talking about at hand, and the rules of unintended consequences. So one of the things that we've all seen in the headlines, right? We were just talking about the media, is this idea that the basic rap is transactions are going to go down by 6%. This is good for the consumer, which we all know is BS, as we just discussed a little bit. But what if it actually has the opposite? In Larry's situation, if you turn around and you're like, well, look, this house is worth whatever the transaction price is, right? Let's say it's $500,000, and it's not going to go down by 6% to 470, but they're going to still hold to that $500,000 price. Well, now if the seller comes in, I have a house, especially in this market, that is worth $500,000, and there's 10 people lined up to buy it, as we've seen already this spring. Buyer's like, well, I need some concessions. Like, I don't have concessions, but if you turn around and pay me $515,000, I'll give you out appraises for $515,000, and now it's driving prices higher in order to compensate the selling or the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
Prices down, which is the intent of the settlement.
Hey,
yeah,
the intent of the settlement is to pay a little bit of money to a bunch of sellers and a lot of money to a plaintiff's lawyer. let's be clear about that.
Hey, Patrick.
Well, yes, that's absolutely true.
That
like this will be good for consumers, and it may go the other way.
Yeah, Patrick turned me on to this this podcast, Planet Money, where they interviewed the plaintiff's. Thank you. Where they interviewed the plaintiff's attorney, who is this
Mike
attorney.
Ketchmark.
What's his name?
Mike Ketchmark. He's a personal injury lawyer in Kansas City.
Yeah, personal injury lawyer in Kansas City. Has a great presentation about him. And he had 4 lawyers on his side working on the case with him, his son, and, a couple other attorneys, the one that brought the case to him and another attorney. And he mentioned how on one of the conference calls they had, I don't know if it was a discovery call or what it was, but there was those 4 attorneys for the plaintiffs on one side and 123 attorneys for the NAR on the other side on the phone at the same time. So who was scared poopless, right? The NAR.
Well, Larry, that's a little bit of theater on his part. I promise you. And if you look at the pleadings, there are way more than 4 lawyers working on the plaintiff's side. There is no way on earth that four people could do all the work necessary to bring that case from developing it from the little baby seed of a case to where they got it to. So
yeah, that could be.
And by the way, the fact that he's able to like kind of tell that story in a way that that's what makes him so good. That's what makes a good trial.
Definitely.
They're telling a story. He's good. All right. I kind of crapped on him a little bit in one of my TikToks, calling him a indirect need a check guy. And I probably should, I should walk that back a little bit because, unfortunately, it's hard to walk anything back that once it's on the internet. But no, he's good. He's absolutely a talented.
He did a great job, man. I mean, they did an amazing job. They handed the NAR their
business model, right?
Hey, I got a question for Patrick. This is a scenario, I think I mentioned this to you, Larry, that I see playing out with this. Most of these buyers, okay, they got 3.5% down, 5%, whatever. Okay. Don't you see a scenario where, when they don't go, even when the smoke clears on this, they're not going to sit and go, well, we got to hire a buyer broker to get started. No, they jump into Zillow, they start looking at homes. And they're going to get wind of, well, geez, we have to pay this guy too. They're just going to go straight to the listing broker, and you're going to end up with dual agency, firing up again. And I could see in 3 or 5 years having more lawsuits going, look, we got misrepresented on this. Can't you see some of that playing out a little bit, Pat?
I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be a change as opposed to, what it is today. When you click on Zillow, that's a lead that gets sold to a real estate broker. So, right there, that's already getting directed to a buyer broker. But I think a lot of people, to the extent that they're going to say, well, hey, I can go alone and save 3% or whatever it is. They're going to get into it, especially in this market, and they're going to realize that they are not equipped at all to negotiate with the listing broker. What are they going to do? If there's multiple offers and you've got, on the one hand, a buyer represented by a broker submits an offer on a multi-board 7.0, they have the pre-approval with the offer. That mortgage broker is calling the listing broker to make sure, hey, look, I'm on it. Here's how qualified my people are, and blah blah blah. Whereas, I'm a buyer, and I'm going to get crapped on for this, but I'm submitting essentially a piece of construction paper with crayon on it. Go, I buy your house $500,000. Who wins that?
Right.
Hey, Patrick. Right? So Matt Laracy, right, who's the top selling agent in Chicago. He sells about $1 billion of real estate every Friday.
I know. I stitched him on TikTok.
I saw that. And he made a comment that pretty much every buyer that puts an offer in on one of his properties, that deal literally gets set on fire halfway through the deal because they're missing all kind of benchmarks and all kinds of things that they're not paying attention to because buyers don't know. I mean, let's be honest. They don't.
Look, I represent
for sure.
I represent a lot of people in these transactions, and there's very few who at the end they go, yeah, I really don't know what my buyer broker did for me. I mean, they do so much. And Larry, to go back to an earlier point you made, it to me, it is a massive failing on the part of the National Association of Realtors that all of those efforts go just completely unnoticed by the general public. And, it's gone to create this idea that, the public can do math at least well enough to multiply 0.06 times the purchase price. And they go, that's too much money. But they don't, what very few people are out there doing is saying, look, this is all that goes into that. These are all of the hours of the day I spend. This is the step-by-step process of what it takes for me to actually get your, I was going to use a bad word. I don't know if that's allowed on the Real Estate Radio Show podcast.
Let it rip.
By the way, we're not live.
We're not on the radio now. You can go right ahead.
Don't tempt me because I will absolutely light the thing on fire. But all of that effort. Like my mom's a real estate broker. I know how hard she works. I know how hard my entire life she worked to make sure that we had a nice life and that I was able to, have chicken and rice every night because that's what we had. Because she was never home because she was working all the time. Okay, you know, a rotisserie chicken is awesome when you've got to go. You know, come home, chuck it on the counter, say, here you go, and head off to show another house. Okay, so I mean, anyways, I'll step off my soapbox and let you know. There's 4 of us here, and I don't have to be the only one that talks.
No, I mean, that's a good point. The NAR really fails in letting people know exactly what buyer's agents do. We just don't, you know, listen, I'm a listing agent and a buyer's agent, depending on the client I'm working with, just like John. And, you know, sometimes we're wearing a different hat, but when we're buyer's agents, there's a ton of work that goes into that. I've had clients I've shown 170 homes to before they finally decided to stay in the transaction. And I was in therapy, you know, literally.
You shouldn't have done that. You really shouldn't have done that.
I know, but you know what?
That
sounds bloody to me.
I glom onto it. I'm not letting it go until I get it across the finish line. That's just my nature. So that's, and I agree with you. There's a lot of agents
or you execute them.
Huh?
Or you execute them, whichever comes
or
first.
They execute me, exactly. But yeah, you know, I mean, I think what Patrick, you said earlier, you know, the media has changed so much since Dan Rather, the news. It's not the news anymore. It's clickbait. It's one, like you said, one person's writing the headlines, one person's writing the article, and it's all about who's clicking on what and how many comments do we get and how much can we charge our advertisers as a result of all that.
It's a business, Larry. It's a business.
It's not the news anymore.
We need to stop the, you know, to the extent anyone holds the press. I'm sounding so tinfoil hat right now, and I'm really not like that. But you know, realize that whoever is bringing you the news, that you know, they're no different than McDonald's in the sense that they're all trying to make money.
Yeah.
Now that just means you need to be an educated consumer of news, right? Just like you're not going to go and buy. You know, if you see someone out the back of McDonald's, and you know they're, I don't know, rubbing the rags in an oil patch and then walking back in, you're not going to consume that food. And so I don't know if that's a pretty crappy example, but you know, be an educated consumer of news. Understand, you know, it's pretty easy to figure out what slant a particular news outlet is trying to push. You know, you can still consume it. Just understand what their motivation is.
Yeah, don't be intellectually lazy and dive deeper if you're hearing something that doesn't sound right.
There you go.
Right.
Larry, you said you put that really well right there, Larry.
Yeah. Well,
one of the things I wanted to put out again on all the work that the buyers agents are doing, I think that's really important to keep in mind is, you know, we have mortgage transactions. Patrick, I'm sure you've sat at the closings at some of these, and in spite of all our efforts to showcase and we have people who are like 2 and 3 days before closing or at closing. They're like, I have no idea what's going on. And that's because sometimes they're disengaged. But other times it's simply because they've trusted their professionals throughout the process. And so if you're an agent, I think that's a place where it's okay that your consumer's like, no, Larry said it's going to be fine. Like, I don't understand what the issue is. And move on. And I think that ultimately those protections have not, those protections brought to the table by the protected by the NAR at the big picture level, to your point.
Yeah. Hey, I want to do something because I read this article online that I'm going to bring on here right now. And this is NAR compensation and independent contractor expenses. And this is for the fiscal year ending 2022. So this is as far as recent as I could find anywhere. And let's take a look at this because like I mentioned earlier, when me and John were talking, you know, we kind of just pay our dues, right, John? We don't really pay attention to the NAR. We don't know what they get paid, how they spend our dues, and they're literally taking in close to $300 million, or a little bit more actually, in dues and some weird advertising payment we pay each year.
Hey, Lair, what are we paying out of our dues every month? Have you looked at that lately? I want to say it's like $60.
No, we're paying $156 a year plus $45 a year for their consumer advertising.
Yeah, that's the 45. That's the number I was looking for. Yeah.
So
unbelievable, really.
So if we look at this, check this out. So this is for the fiscal year ending 2022. Total revenue was around $362 million, $328,362,000, rounding it off. And that is it leaves them with an expenses of about $306 million and a net income of about a little less than $23 million. But this is what absolutely gobsmacked me, because I had no idea what these people were paid. And listen, I am not, we're all sensitive right now because everybody's putting a value on us, right, John? Everybody's saying,
absolutely.
Oh, you guys don't do anything,
overpaid.
Yeah, you're overpaid. You don't do anything. And everyone
6%.
Everybody finds it easy to put a value on somebody else, and they always diminish their value, right? But if you put a value on yourself, what do you typically do? You increase that value because you know how much work you do. So putting that aside for a minute, I don't want to put a value on what Bob Goldberg did when he was the CEO of the NAR. I'm not going to get into that. If Patrick wants to, he can. But Bob Goldberg, who was the CEO of NAR, his salary was just shy of $2.6 million a year. Now, I don't know. It seems like a lot.
That's incredible.
It seems like a lot to me, but am I being unfair, Patrick? I don't know.
Okay, so no, in my own opinion, I'll give you the other side of the argument, which is that, look, this is what a CEO of an organization of that size costs. That's the going rate, right? So just like y'all are worth 6%, a CEO is worth 2.6 million. Maybe, but I'd have done that job for a little bit less.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what I did. I did the math a little bit, and this is, like you said, Patrick, it's an organization that has a total revenue of 328 million, and if you do the math, 2.6 million for the guy running the whole thing is about 0.007 or whatever it is of the total revenue. So I don't really know what his job is, so I really can't comment on that. How demanding.
Can you comment on why he's not in his job anymore?
What happened there anyway?
Oh, I don't know the details. He was being a naughty boy. He was being a naughty boy.
He wasn't following the realtor code of ethics.
And that changes daily.
Oh my God! You don't even want me to get into that.
So from the stories we've heard out of NAR headquarters, I mean, whether it's that whole situation, whether it's the I don't remember her name, but she was pre Kevin Sears, stepped down because of the possible blackmail that was maybe going to happen, which is the most bizarre reason that I can think of. I mean, I'm sure someone can dig up another example of a more bizarre resignation reason. I mean, just say personal reasons. Yeah, that was the story. Just say personal reasons. Why do you have to give details? Now I want personal reasons. I don't need to know anymore.
I don't necessarily want
Gary Hart.
But it seems like are two things that were terrifying to me as a kid that, like, apparently I thought were rampant that I never hear as an adult. I don't know. How's this happen? Like, what is going on over there?
NAR president resigned due to blackmail threat sought to compromise her leadership role. So president, not CEO, but still not good. Still not
small
good. I stand by
detail,
that.
not a
No,
big
it's
deal.
not a good look.
Definitely
No,
a bad look.
It's not a good
Could have
look at
used
all.
less detail on that. Personal reasons would have been sufficient.
Yeah. So let's look at some of these other ones. So the CEO, and I'm assuming the current CEO makes a similar salary of about 2.6 million. But I found some of these other things like really amazing, like Mark Birschbach, who is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Business Innovation and Technology, meaning he's selling all of our information to Zillow and finding out exactly how much money he can make doing that. He or that position pays a little over $1 million a year, about $1,050,000 a year. And if we scroll past that, this government affairs, Shannon McGann, Senior Vice President, little over $1 million. I found this one to be amazing. So Katie Johnson, and I don't know if she's still the general counsel or not. And by the way, this is all public information, obviously. General counsel and chief member experience officer. I've had a great experience, Katie, with the NAR recently. So thank you for that. $967,497. Come on, really? I mean,
Larry, I did a little Googling. I need to be a little bit. I need to be doing a little mea culpa. So Bob Goldberg, he's not the naughty boy. It is the predecessor to the blackmail president. Kenny Parcell resigned amid sexual harassment allegations. Bob Goldberg resigned after the 1.8 billion. He was set to retire anyway, but after the 1.8 billion, he said, "Out of hell with this," and he just left.
And so, what was his golden parachute?
I'm sorry?
What was his golden parachute?
Oh God. Well, he probably got dented a little bit by the 418 million.
Yeah, I would imagine. You know, I'm wondering.
Too funny.
When are our dues going to go up to pay this $418 million off over a 4-year period? And are we going to see any of these salaries cut as a result of that?
They'd come out and said that they weren't going to raise them. Like, yeah, okay, we're here to help. You know,
where's that coming from then?
Good luck with that.
Yeah, they had said it wouldn't affect us.
Hey boys, I got to hop. It's my time to exit, so I appreciate we'll leave you guys to the rest of it.
All right, bud. Good to have you here.
Take care, man.
See you next Wednesday.
Yep, you got it. All right.
Yeah, so, you know, some of these other salaries, again, I mean, you know, John, we go through our life and we go through being realtors. I've been doing it for almost 24 years. You've probably been doing it for about the same amount of time. And we don't pay attention to the NAR at all. And I think I think what we've learned is we have to pay attention to the NAR. And I think it would be good for the NAR and for realtors in general to pay attention to what their association is doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't pay attention to them. I never heard a peep out of them for 20 plus years. Didn't even know what they did. I mean, literally. I never knew. It's like, oh, NAR. Okay, what, you know, now it's like, wow, and you guys got all this money tied up, and what have you been doing? Nothing. No. But now I hear from them. Yeah, now I hear from them 3 times a week.
Was when I walked down Michigan Avenue and I saw that big building. I was like, wow, realtors have enough money to have a skyscraper on Michigan Avenue. That's
Is
crazy.
that nice? Really? I've never been there, but
I've never been there either. Maybe we should go rate it.
You guys check this out though. So independent contractor expenses. This is the other thing that absolutely blew me away. So this marketing group, Havis Marketing Group, which is the marketing group that marketing and communications group that the NAR works with. And it's not like this changes. I don't know if this gets bid out or if this is somebody's friend or what, but every year this group, Havis Marketing Group, gets paid a little over $45 million a year to market and communicate with people. I'm not sure what that means, but $45 million a year, and it never changes. It's always Havis Marketing Group, from what I can see, if we go down through the years. So does this get bid out, Patrick, or what?
Yeah, that's a nice contract. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. One would assume. I don't know how long those contracts are for, if they're annual or if they, maybe they sound like a 5-year deal or something. But that's a lot of money. And again, not to repeat myself, it's like, what have they done to elevate the reputation of realtors in this country? And I've had people argue to me, well, that's not their remit. That's not what they're meant to do. Y'all need to be doing that yourselves. It's like, no one real estate broker has the mouthpiece that a national organization that takes in $350 million a year has. And, quite frankly, I mean, I know I have, any number of bar associations, whether I pay into them or not, advocating on behalf of lawyers. And I know you can say, well, look at the reputation of lawyers. I can tell you one thing, everybody likes their lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't know how they can say that's not their job. They are representing us to the public. That is their job. If I'm a member, what's that?
Should be if it's not. I mean, they're going to say, well, look at all the lobbying we do. Look at how we've protected you guys from the Department of Justice. They were able to get the Trump administration to back off, and big win. They're going to point to all those wins, and still, I mean, Larry, you've seen the comment section on my TikTok. Whenever I say the word realtor, people, are so polarized. It's crazy.
Everybody loves me on your TikTok feeds. Did you notice that?
You're very popular.
Hey, Larry, I got to get rocking, dude. This guy's waiting for me. But
okay,
Patrick, good to talk to you, man. You guys have a great weekend.
All right, man. Have a good weekend yourself.
Take care.
Yeah, Patrick. I mean, it's literally, and the National Association of Realtors, they trademarked and the name realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even refer to myself as a realtor because they have so put that name in the crapper. I call myself a broker, which is what I am. I'm a real estate broker, because as soon as you call yourself a realtor, all these negative connotations come up. And it's a lot of it has to do, I think, with the stewardship of the NAR and how they've not how they've portrayed us, but how they haven't portrayed us, maybe.
It seems to me that that's true. And look, they, I think, bear some of the blame, no question. And, the other side of the coin, or one other side of the coin, is the fact that there are so many, I was going to say shithead, but I'll say it, real estate brokers out there, realtors, let's
100%.
say it. There's so many shithead realtors out there. And they are they're the other big problem as far as reputation is concerned.
I agree.
And those are the people that are simply unlocking a door, or worse, steering people into properties that aren't in their best interest just so they can get paid. They're not going to show someone 170 properties like you showed that person. They're going to show someone 5 and be like, you got to pick one of these 5 because I'm not showing you any more properties. Stuff like that goes on that you and I wouldn't even know about because we're not exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the low bar to entry, why is that? Well, here's my cynical perspective on it.
I know exactly what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Well, you've got the subscription model brokerages who just want to pile as many brokers in. And look, I know people that run brokerages like that, and they're people I know, like, and trust outside of that context. And it's like, okay, they are absolutely they're invested in the notion that it's very easy to get your real estate broker license. So you've got important people with influence that are able to influence that to remain how it is. And then you've got people, for example, who run big teams who know there's an 87% attrition rate in the real estate business, and they're happy to take a new broker and absolutely run them ragged for 2 years, burn them out. They'll go back to whatever they were doing before they were doing real estate, and they'll bring in a fresh set of people to run ragged. And, that is a significant portion of the business. And so, are we going to see, I heard. Let's say I'll use his name again, Matt Laracy. I heard him say, we're going to lose 50% of the real estate brokers over the next however many years. I I hope he's right about that.
Me
However,
too.
I think that that's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to lose 50%. When it gets hot again, you get a whole bunch of people coming into the business again. And then they fall out and a bunch more people come in. It's this whole
Yeah, they
attrition
go,
rate.
I hate my job. I could do that wholesale and real estate thing. It looks like you can make a bunch of money. And all of those things might be true, but that person doesn't have a clue what it takes to actually succeed. And they're not being told, hey, every, for every one person that makes it as a realtor, like an actual real realtor, not a part-time, not
Right.
a, I do this on the weekends, not a, whatever. I do it when my relatives or a close friend needs to buy or sell a house. A real ass realtor, only one out of 10 people who get
If
that
that.
license are going to actually
Yeah.
succeed in that way.
Yeah, absolutely true. And a lot of these businesses, like you intimated, they run based on headcount. And frankly, NAR, the easier it is for people to be a realtor, the more people they have paying them $156 a year and $45 a year to run their consumer ads. And that all adds up to about $305 million, depending on how many realtors there are. And yeah, so it's
If
kind
that
of
gets chopped
weird.
in half, imagine.
Well, you know what? I wonder what would happen if all of us just decided, you know what? We're not paying the NAR anymore. I'm done. I'm done.
It's a great question. I mean, I think you do need an advocacy group, right? Like
I agree.
there's absolutely an important role
And by the
that
way,
that is.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not suggesting we do that. But the reality of it is they exist because of me and 1.45 million others that pay them $156 a month. It's a great deal.
100%. A house cleaning seems to be in order, and just when you talk about an organization and you talk about misconduct at the highest level, that is just an indication of what's going on below the leadership. Okay, the leadership of an organization absolutely is reflected at the lower levels. So whatever's going on with, Kenny Parcell, who resigned, and by the way, he denies that any of that took place. But the vibe I get is you've got a bit of a frat house atmosphere over there on North Michigan Avenue. As much as I enjoyed being in a fraternity and living in a frat house, that's fine if you're in college. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But once you're a grown ass adult, okay, leave
Representing
that.
1.6 million other people.
Yeah, leave that locker room behavior in the locker room. Okay, I'm not gonna, what happens in the hockey locker room stays in the hockey locker room. You take that whatever way you want. And when I'm in the real ass professional world, I try to act like a real ass professional.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And I mean, I agree with you. What happens at the top trickles down to everyone else below, and it makes us look. And like you said, there's a lot of realtors out there that also don't really cast a great or cast a shadow on the rest of us because of their actions. And and I'm not conflating, but that's really with any profession.
that's true.
Firemen, attorneys, insurance people, doctors, whoever. I mean, that's just part of the deal. There's going to be good, there's going to be bad in every profession. But man, there's a lot of realtors out there. And we got to police ourselves. But I think one of the things that's going to come out of this whole thing is I think real estate brokers are going to pay a lot closer attention to the NAR and what's going on over there, because we really haven't in the past. We just pay our dues and go sell houses.
Yeah, and that's not to suggest that you guys were asleep at the wheel or something like that. You shouldn't have to necessarily watch them like a hawk, right? I shouldn't have to. Anyone who is representing me in any kind of representative capacity I shouldn't have to micromanage them. I don't have time to do that. I've got to, I got to do my own stuff. That's why we have people representing us,
Yeah.
In various aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
And, the fact that this has come to the place that it has come to, it's like, okay, let's clean house. Let's get more appropriate representatives on your behalf so that you can go back to doing what you need to do and not watching them like,
Can we talk for a minute? We're going to wrap this up shortly, but can we just talk for a minute about the representation we had in this case? Because I honestly believe if I was arguing this case, I would have won this case. First of all, I don't think they proved collusion or a conspiracy at all. I think they just implied there's collusion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me they didn't really prove anything. There was no smoking gun other than a couple of stupid training sessions. But I mean, they didn't prove there was collusion. They didn't prove there was a conspiracy and people were artificially, holding up commissions, but they implied it.
I think to you and I, because we have a very deep understanding of how this business works and is meant to work and how it can work, I think that we have a major blind spot as it comes to how the general public would view this kind of situation. And some of the things they talked about in the podcast about presenting the case in front of a number of mock juries to see what the reaction was going to be.
That was interesting.
It was universal, in favor of the plaintiff's argument. And when you hear the kinds of things that the realtor lawyers, whether it's NAR or any of the number of other co-defendants, they were basically arguing for the status quo. They weren't making any arguments that, hey, what these folks are saying is not true. We didn't collude. What they're saying is no, it's always been this way, and that's not a winning argument.
How stupid is that? That's what I mean.
Well, and look, they hire the attorneys they hire aren't idiots, right? And this is going to sound like me taking up for lawyers, but you can't walk into a courtroom and be like, look, I represent the National Association of Realtors. The arguments they want me to make they suck. They absolutely suck. So I'm going to make a completely different argument that's going to be way better and has a better chance of winning. But these idiots behind me, they want me to argue something really stupid. Yeah, at the end of the day, the client drives the bus there. And so, what that looks like to me is you've got a bunch of lawyers that went in there and they're like, I got to work with basically my B squad of arguments. They weren't able to bring they weren't able to bring the starting lineup as far as good arguments because the realtor defendants weren't having it, and it's like I can't say that they could have won the case because only in an alternate universe where they were able to bring those best arguments and to the table, we know. But I mean, they could have given it a way better go than what I think that they did. And the plaintiffs came in and they go, "This is our case," and the defendants came in and go, "Yeah, I don't know what they're saying over there, but we think it's fine."
Yeah, it's always worked this way. The clients have always been happy, and hey, I mean, what am I missing here? Listen, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not ripping on the NAR. I'm not ripping on their attorneys. And this isn't a hit session on the NAR because listen, they do some good things. I don't know what they are, but they do some good things. And but honestly, Patrick, the representation we had and the argument they made just didn't exist. It was stupid. It was just. I don't get it.
It's to me, I don't know. I'm doing a little Monday morning quarterbacking here, and I know that, but that's what pundits do, right? Like we get I don't have to be in it. I just get to wait to see what happens and then rip them to shreds because I don't like it. But it smacks of arrogance
Throws
to
up
me
on.
that they were so confident that the jury would see it their way, that they couldn't take the blinders off their eyes. They couldn't see things the way perhaps someone who is not
But
deep
there we
in the
go.
real estate business would see things.
Yeah. The judge is going to sign off on it. DOJ is going to comment on it. We're going to deal with it come July 15th. We'll all deal with it. We'll all move on. We'll handle it. Like Kevin said, we'll figure it out, and we will. But for me, I think it could have been handled better by the NAR and their attorneys. But like you said, I'm looking in my rear view mirror, and what do I know?
Yeah, if everyone could have sat down at a table like adults and talked about some real issues in the business, and talked about real solutions to the issues, and come up with a reasonable compromise, I think everyone, certainly the realtors, would have come out looking a lot better than they are right now.
Yeah.
It's just the refusal to look at things from more than one perspective is really, it's shooting themselves in the foot at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it always. And we will be seeing you on TikTok. You're blowing up on TikTok.
You say controversial things, and
they
the
like
algorithm rewards you. So I'm just gonna keep talking shit.
All right, man. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, you too.
Okay, see you. All right, everybody. That is going to be a wrap for the Real Estate Radio Show podcast. Remember, you can join us here every Saturday at 9 a.m. and every Wednesday at either 11 or 11:30 a.m. And we're going to be talking real estate. We'll be back live in the studio, WCPT AM, 8:20 a.m. as of June 1st. And until then, we will be in our virtual studios every Saturday at 9 a.m. So you guys, we enjoyed having you with us, and we will be talking to you soon. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for joining us on Real Estate Radio with your host, Larry Shakman, the real estate therapist and top producing broker. Now go to trustedagentUSA.com and save thousands when you sell, buy, or invest. Illinois license number 475145795. Tune in next week for the ultimate real estate radio experience.